All right, so let's talk about 3D printers. These machines are fantastic prototyping tools with a couple of caveats to keep in mind. 3D printer is a machine that takes a spool of plastic called filament, heats it up just enough to melt it, and then extrudes it, kind of like squeezing a tube of toothpaste. The melted plastic is deposited in very specific arrangements, building up layer by layer to create complex shapes. Once the plastic cools, it solidifies into hard plastic, and it's a solid object. You can take just about any three-dimensional shape that you find online or create yourself, send it to the 3D printer, and it will recreate almost perfectly. However, before the 3D printer can start, you need some slicing software. Slicing software takes your 3D model and determines how to orient it and the path that the 3D printer needs to follow to print your object. The software slices the model into thin layers and generates the instructions for the printer to follow. The basic process is you're going to create or find your 3D model, import it into the slicing software, generate the sliced file, and then you send that to the 3D printer, at which point you can print your object. You can print it multiple times, you can change colors in between, but once you have it sliced, you can print it as many times as you want to. 3D printing has become a lot faster in recent years, but it can still take a significant amount of time to do. The printers that we have are pretty quick, but some models might take most of a school day or even longer to print. So be mindful of print times and plan accordingly. For long prints, we'll schedule them to make sure that they don't interrupt other people's projects. You are going to be responsible for changing and storing the filament properly. Filament can absorb moisture just that's in the air. If you get moisture into the filament, it can affect the quality of your prints. So you're always going to store filament in a dry environment. I'll talk about specifics about how we're going to do our filament storage in just a little bit. So why would you 3D print? 3D printing is excellent for prototyping complex shapes that are difficult to create with other materials like cardboard. You can also print specific parts that you've designed or models that you found online. In class, we'll primarily use 3D printing as prototyping for our tools and for manufacturing parts. When using 3D printers, make sure that you follow all the safety procedures. These things get hot. That's what they do to melt the plastic. So be mindful of touching the build plate or the nozzle as you're getting close to or during or right after printing. You want to keep the workspace clean and organized to prevent accidents and just from mess building up. All right, so that's basically it about the gist of 3D printing. On the next part, I will talk to you about the specifics of our 3D printers and our filament storage. I'll give you instructions for setup, using it, tear down, and storage. You're going to start with level 1 projects, and then I will connect you with some more advanced projects that you can try out if you want to give those a shot. Drop any questions you have online, and I will respond to them as soon as I can. Good luck and happy printing. The other thing we need to do is get our print software. Print software for the FlashForge is called FlashPrint. So if you just search FlashPrint, it'll bring you to the FlashForge website. Look for flashforge.com and look for software. When I'm recording this, I'm on FlashForge 5. They may wind up doing another model at some point. I will try to update this video if that happens. You might get some pop-ups. Go ahead. It's just looking for coupons to get it, buy it. We already have these, so we just need to get the software downloaded and installed. Pick your operating system, Windows, Mac, or Linux, and then click on the download button. It's going to pop a download into your browser. Once it's done, you can click it and you can open it. It's going to be another zip file. All right, so you're going to unzip that folder, and it's going to have a PKG file, which is just an install file. All right. There are going to be things that like this that might pop up when it's asking you about specifics about how to install it. If you get stuck here, holler for help or ask a neighbor. I trust that you'll be able to kind of figure out what's going on. Usually you can click through it and hit OK. All right, you can hit continue. You might need to pick the language that you need and continue on. I already have this installed, so it's going to look a little different on my computer than on yours. All right, and so for example, my software is already updated, so I'm going to stop the install, but you should follow through. You should get FlashPrint installed on your computer because that is the slicer that we're going to do. All right, so let's talk about how to get a model sliced. First thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about places where we can get some models. A good one is called Thingiverse. That's Thingiverse, like universe, but with thing instead of un. All right, Thingiverse.com. You can search for all sorts of stuff here. Pretty much everything you want to find. Another good one is thangs.com, like things, but with an A. And Thangs is going to search a whole bunch of different websites like Thingiverse. and give you a whole bunch of different results that are there. All right, so let's see what we got. We got this cute little skull octopus. All right, I'm going to click on it, and it's going to bring up the info on the model. You need to spend a little bit of time on these websites and kind of understand how they work. You need to look for the download files, and what we're looking to get is an STL file. That is how we get it from places where we are getting models. So you can hit download all, and after a second, it'll prompt you to download this to your computer. It might ask you to sign up for stuff. You never have to sign up for stuff. If you do wind up using a lot of models and you want to support the creators, there are options to do that. Not an expectation for this class. All right, that's how you find existing models. You go to a website that has them like Thingiverse or Thangs. The other option you could do is you can create your own. We'll do that on a website like Tinkercad. Now, this is not an in-depth on how to find models or an in-depth on how to create models. This is just a reminder of how you can get some of this stuff. So if you do have an existing model that you've done, oh, there's my little skull octopus. He's finished downloading. If you do have an existing model that you've made, like I am gonna work on this one. I think this is, let's see what it looks like when we get this. This is a piece I'm using for doing a repair on something. When you're in Tinkercad, you can take your object and you can export everything in the design and save it again. It's an STL, and that will download. All right. Taking a look at the different downloads we have here. One is an STL that's perfect. That's ready to go in our slicer program. The other one is a zip file. All right. If you do have a zip file, you need to unzip it. The easiest way to do that if you're on a Mac is just to click to open it. If you're on Windows, you need to extract it into a folder. Okay. If you're on a Mac, it's gonna chew through it for a second, and then usually it will pop open that folder, and you can see inside here, there's all sorts of STL files. So I might wind up picking a different one. It's cute, but we'll see what happens. All right, so we have our models downloaded or designed, but they're all downloaded. So now I'm gonna run FlashPrint. All right, a couple of the basics for FlashPrint. To zoom in and zoom out, you can use a 2-finger zoom on your trackpad. To rotate around, you can do a 2-finger click and move around. And then to kind of pan, so you're just moving left and right, you can hold down Shift and then do that 2-finger click, and it'll just move what you're looking at around. And I have my models set ready to go. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick new model files. I click on the model file button over here, or I can go to File, and I can get, where is this? I guess I got to hit it right here. We hit the model file, and then we hit Add a Model. All right, it's going to bring you to your computer looking for the files. May ask you if you need to give permission to look for it. Yes, we need to get the files into the program. So I know I have, this is the one that I designed, so I can double click it, and you can see it shows up right there. I'm going to stick with this model just because I know it's simple. I know that it can print. I'm going to take you through some stuff real quick. Over on the right, you can click the Move button to move it around. You can also put it onto the platform if you've lifted it up too high. So the X, the Y, and the Z are kind of where the model is left and right. The Z is how high up it is. So you can put it 20 millimeters off the platform. You can see it's floating in the air. That's not going to print well, so you always want to make sure it's on the platform, and then you can center it to the platform if you want. Next thing you do is you rotate it. It'll show you a couple of different circles. You click on a circle and you drag it around, and it'll rotate just around that circle. All right, so you can get some wild rotations going around if you need to. You probably won't need to, and this actually is not going to let me rotate it because it'll clip into, oh, there it is. I just had to move it around in a different way. That is not going to print well, so I'm just going to Command Z a couple times and undo out of that. All right, y'all can also have it where if you do rotate it in a wild and crazy way, you can click on that surface to platform, and it'll let you rotate that way. All right, we can also scale. All right, if we scale, we can click and drag, and I'll make it bigger or smaller. If you know the exact dimensions that you need, you probably shouldn't mess with this. But if you just want to print out a thing and make it as big as you can click on that maximum button, and you can do all sorts of stuff messing around with that. So I'm going to undo a couple of times because I don't want it too big. What else can we do? We can cut it in half. We can cut it so that if your model is too big, so let's go back. Actually, let's scale it. Maximum, I'm going to make it even bigger. All right, so now it's way too big. You can see the red panels that are showing up. It's too big in those dimensions. So now if I go to cut, and I cut it like this, you can see I just go hit the start cut, and it's going to cut it into 2 pieces. It split them away perfectly. All right, and now what I can do is I can get rid of one of them and Now I can just print this giant one. I move it, I center it in the platform. Now we're good to go. This is a way for you to do giant models. You can cut it through here. You can also design it to be cut in your modeling software. But if you're finding a file and you want to make it so that it can fit by scaling it up, that is a tool that you have available to you. Duplicate it if you want to do a whole bunch of them. You can make a whole bunch of them. Look, I have 4 of them now. I need to figure out how to better lay them out. I can use this auto layout all button to try and organize them better. It did its best. It's still too big for this, but that will help you organize stuff on your platform. All right, last thing I want to talk to you about is supports. All right, so you see this model, it's got that kind of hole in the middle of it, it's got a hole in the back. I'm going to change the orientation of it a little bit. I'm going to rotate it so this bit right here, if it looks like a C, the space in between the C's is hanging off into space. Now 3D prints, because we're just melting hot plastic, that plastic will droop if you don't have supports on it, something underneath it. So you can go into supports and you can say, hey, add some extra filament, add some extra 3D printed stuff. It's not part of my model, but it's going to keep some of my stuff supported. So this is going to take a little bit of playing around. It's going to be very specific to whatever model you do. I don't know how this is going to look, but let's try it and find out. A couple of different kinds you could do, one called a tree and one called pillars. Again, tree is going to start at the bottom and branch out like a tree. Pillars is going to go straight up and down. One kind of support may be better or worse for yours. Usually tree is pretty good, so you can stick with that. Usually all the defaults are pretty good, so you can stick with that. I'm going to hit the auto support button and see what happens, and you can see as I zoom in here that we have this little tree shape going in. It's sticking to a couple of parts on my model right there, and then it's branching up to give a nice even platform. So by the time it gets to that overhang, it'll be able to rest on the support and be nice and smooth and clean. And I wonder, yes, actually on the inside too, where that opening is as well. All right, so I can hit the back button. And wiping tower is something, if we had a multi-material, if we could do 2 kinds of filament at once, we would need to worry about that. We don't need to worry about that. And that is just about it. The only other stuff I want to share with you is to go back to here. Oh, hang on. And we're good. Once you add the supports, it's not going to really want to let you move stuff around, so you can undo a couple of times and it'll let you get back to stuff. All right, last thing I want to talk about. Usually your default settings are going to be fine for everything we're doing. If you don't find that to be the case, it's going to be on you to figure out what you need to do to tweak stuff. So let's talk about how we might do that. When you're ready to go, we're going to say start slicing. And here are a couple of things you might want to change: your layer height, your fill density, your print speed, or your shell count. If you know what this means, or if you know you need to tweak it, the way you change it is by hitting in expert mode and changing all the stuff in here. If you don't know what that means, or you don't care, then you're fine. The default settings are usually going to be fine for about 96% of the prints that we do in this space. So when you're ready to go, when your model looks good, you have the layout the way you want it laid out, you hit start slicing. I'm going to go back to basic mode. All right, this is what it's going to look like. You hit slice, and it's going to slice. So it's going to look at every layer of the model, and it's going to get it ready to go. What you can do now is you can save it to local. You can save it to a USB drive, and then you'll take the USB drive and put it into the printer. Okay. If you're on the printer that's connected, or if you're on the computer that's connected to the printers, you can actually just send it right to the printers. There's going to be a send to printer button, but usually you're going to slice it on your computer, throw it on a USB drive, put the USB drive into the printer itself. All right, let's talk real quick about what it looks like to actually get it onto the USB drive. Once you're sliced, you're going to save it locally. You're going to need a name for it. I'm going to call this cap thing. I'm going to put my name in there just so people know who it is. And you can navigate right to the USB drive in your computer, and you can save it as all the defaults are going to be there. Hit save, and you're good to go. All right, eject that, and then you can fire that into the printer and start printing. All right, so that's slicing. It's a new thing. Takes a little bit to get used to it, but you navigate around, you add your model, you get it set up and tweaked the way you need it to, and then when you're ready to go, you slice it, and then you're going to save it to a USB drive, put it on the printer. All right, let's start talking about some of our 3D printer basics. These are our 3D printers that we're using. We might have some other ones. These are for the Adventurer 5M Pros. I'm going to talk you through the basics from start to finish. First thing I'm going to do is turn it on. I've already turned this one on because it takes a second. You should usually just be able to hit the power button on the front. If nothing's happening, check. There's a power switch on the back near where the power cord goes down. That still doesn't work. Make sure it's plugged in. All right. Once it's turned on and booted up, it's going to go into the home screen. We're going to start by talking about changing colors of filament. You can also change types of filament. By and large, we're all going to use the same kind of PLA filament. All right, we got tubs and tubs of them over here. So when you need to change filament, here's what you do. You're going to lift up the lid, and you are going to remove the guide tube for the filament and start there. I'm going to take a video and show you what it looks like up close. All right, so you have the guide tube, this thick white tube. It's kind of like a long straw. You slide that back, and you can see this is actually the filament itself. You pull that guide tube back far enough that you can get to the filament and not cut the guide tube, but just cut the filament like that. All right, after that, you can take the spool of filament off the back and gently pull the filament all the way out like this. Okay, wrap it up. Now, let's talk about the filament storage. Filament is made of plastic, but if the plastic gets full of moisture, it won't print as well. So we do our best to store filament as dry as possible. That's why we have these bins. Inside each one of these bins is a big bag of silica gel, the stuff that you get in your shoes to keep them dry. Same sort of stuff here. Find the color that you're replacing, pull out that bin, and you're going to put that roll of filament inside that bin and make sure it gets locked up nice and tight. Okay? Put the lid on, latch it up, store it, you're good to go. Then, you can find the color filament that you want to use, pull that out. Again, unlatch it, pull out the roll of filament, latch up the whole bin, put it back up. Now to install filament, to load filament, there's a button on the screen. I'll show you where it is. Okay, there's a button that looks like a roll of filament. You can click on that, and we can load filament or swap filament. We're swapping filament, so we're going to follow the instructions. First thing it says is to pull out the filament tube and cut it off like we did. Now we're going to replace the filament in the guide, and then we're going to hit start to get the filament loading in. All right, so I'm going to find the filament. You want to make sure that the end of the filament looks pretty good. All right, this one looks pretty good. If it doesn't look nice and smooth and straight like that, if there's any gunk on it, you just use the snips to cut off the end so you have a clean ending. All right, I'm going to put the filament on the back of this printer right here, and then put the filament into the end of the filament guide. All right, and then we just keep pushing through until it comes out the top end of the filament guide. All right, it's coming out here, so now I'm good to go. On the screen it says start. I hit start. What it's going to do is it's going to take all the existing filament was in there that we just cut off, spit that out. As soon as it's clear, we can put the new filament in, and as soon as that's caught on the inside of the extruder and pulling through, we can put the filament guide and tuck that right back in. I'll show you a close up. We're heating up right now, and once that's heated up, you can see the filament is getting pulled in through there. As soon as it's clear, you can insert the new filament, push gently, and after a second you should feel it start to get pulled in on its own. You can tuck in the filament guide, that white tube, and then you're good to go. Now all I need to do is wait until the filament coming out is the color of the filament that you want to be coming out. And after a few seconds, it'll be good. The screen will be done in just a second. And once it's done, you can take all that extra little pile of filament, throw it out. You're good to go. Alright, a little more. That's it, just throw that out. You're all set. That is how you load and unload filament in these 3D printers. That is how you do the storage of the filament for these 3D printers. Alright, we'll keep going. Alright, so I have my USB drive. I'm going to pop this into the computer and start the print. Let's see what this looks like. USB drive is right on the front. Slide it in. And then I can go, after a second I'll see the USB icon show up on the screen. Alright, and we can go to the print button. It's right below the home button over there. There's some that are already on the machine. I'm going to go to the USB drive and swipe down until I see it. Captain Mush, there it is. I can tap it, and I hit the green print button. It takes it from the USB drive onto the printer, and now you can see it's getting ready to go. It needs to heat up the plate. It needs to heat up the extruder, and once both those things are ready, it'll show some progress on the printer itself. while that's heating up, I'm just going to show you a little bit about the other features of the printer. One thing that's really cool about this is if you look inside, you can see we have the print bed is magnetic. It's going to come right off. It's flexible, so you can take your print out, and if it's, especially if it's affixed to the whole base, what you can do is you can give the plate a little bit of a bend, and it'll pop right off. Okay, I'll show you if we have a print that we can take a look at. Otherwise, just trust me, it only takes a little bit of effort, and it'll crack right off. To get it back in, you're going to want to slide it all the way towards the back, underneath the little tabs in the back. You can see sliding underneath that tab, and then just drop it down. Got a good solid magnet in there, it'll be good to go. In the future, one thing I forgot to mention is if your print is not sticking to the build plate, a couple of things you might try. One, clean that build plate off. Take it off, use a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on a paper towel to clean off the build plate, make sure there's no junk on there. Two, we have some build plate adhesive. You can apply that to the surface of the build plate, not too much, but just enough to get sticky to help get that filament sticking. If you find that the first layer is sticking pretty good, but then after that it's not sticking to that first layer, the bridge, the raft, or whatever, just getting kind of clogged up or floating in the air, you might want to try re-slicing your model. Reorient it, put it in a different spot, maybe rotate it, see if that helps. If you're still running into trouble, we'll have to explore the model further, but those are the ones that you should try to get your model to stick to the build plate and have a successful build. You can see all the stuff on the screen is looking pretty good, and what's going to happen now is it's going to go through, get set to print, and print. It's not going to give you how much time. Oh, it is going to tell you how much time. Depending on what you use to slice it, most of the time it'll tell you how much time is left. So for an example, you can see we got about an hour left on this guy. But it should be good to go. It's just going to get a little bit of filament out of the way and then start the actual print itself. All right. As best you can, try and be responsible for your prints. If you know what time it's going to be done, if it's during a block or during lunch or drop, swing down and take care of your print. Otherwise, we'll do our best. We all need to do our best to be mindful and respectful of the other prints. We'll put them in a place that's clearly obvious. It's part of the reason when we leave our name on it, so that when a print does finish, we know whose it is. Right? That should be the whole process. We got our filament swapping out, we got our slicing good to go and installed on the printer itself, and we got the print going. After that, it's kind of up to you as far as what you want to print. Let me know what questions you have. We will get this video to be as good as possible. I realize right now it's in vertical instead of horizontal, so that's something for the next version. But I hope that this helps get you set up with 3D printing. I'm excited to see what you guys start to test with. Good luck.